Now, this Sunday is Remembrance Sunday, when thousands of veterans gather at the Cenotaph and around the UK to reflect on the service and sacrifice made by those defending the country's freedom. The last World War I veterans died more than a decade ago. The youngest World War II veterans are now at least 95 years old, and there are fewer and fewer still with us who can tell their stories. Our special correspondent, Alan Little, has been talking to three of them.
There was an advertisement saying, "Britain needs you." And we, as loyal members of the Empire, thought it was definitely good that we were required to go and help the mother country.
I couldn't possibly leave the scene. It was a matter of complete life or death to me.
I really became frightened. I had a prayer book with me, a book of Psalms, which I did make use of, I must admit.
Neil Flanagan grew up in Jamaica. He was one of thousands of West Indians who volunteered. He joined the RAF and sailed to Britain to work in aircraft maintenance.
People from the Empire and the Commonwealth died. Many of my colleagues who volunteered to be air crew died as rear gunners and as engineers during the war. We had no choice but to accept death as a part of the way of life.
Christian Lamb joined the Women's Royal Naval Service. She worked in signals, keeping track of North Atlantic shipping convoys. She was plotting the progress of her fiancé's ship when it was attacked by German U-boats.
I knew that they were involved in this terrible battle, and I had thought, having just managed to catch hold of this man, I'm now going to let him go. Of course, it was terrible anxiety, but I couldn't possibly leave the scene. It was a matter of complete life or death to me, and I stayed there waiting for information, hoping for information, and then when eventually he arrived in Canada, he was able to ring me up and say he'd arrived safely.
What was it like taking that call?
Well, it was amazing, of course, and you know, we just both felt, well, nothing you could say, just thank goodness, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Mervyn Kirsch joined the army. He took part in the Normandy landings.
And shortly I saw the outline of France, and that was the first time I really began to realise what I was going into. The adventure ceased to be an adventure, and I became frightened.
His war ended in Germany, where, himself Jewish, he witnessed the horrors of the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp.
Seeing the people, mostly men we saw, in their uniforms, the striped clothing, and their physical condition. Those who could walk, they were thin as anything, their faces were thin, their arms were just bone, because that was the horror of seeing them.
They are a remarkable generation. The courage and sacrifice of their youth, bequeathed to those of us who came later, the world we grew up in.
I think a lot of us were very juvenile before the war, and this gave us an enormous amount of independence, I think. It helped a whole generation of people my age. And we were, from that moment on, we chose what we did. We didn't have to do what our mothers said.
I think I made a contribution in some small way to make Britain safe and sound today, that I still live in and enjoy.
Neil Flanagan ending that report by Alan Little. And just to say, we're trying to gather as many first-hand accounts as we can from World War II veterans ahead of the 80th anniversary in 2025 of the end of the war. If you're one of the veterans, or if you know someone who would be willing to share their story, please do visit us at the BBC News website. That's bbc.co.uk/news. You can get there also by using the News app.